Alright, welcome back. It's time for the next epic video here. I hope you enjoyed the last video, and here we go. So, today I'm going to show you how to build yourself your own glass aquarium or terrarium. Today I am building a terrarium, but the techniques and things that I'm using right now can be easily applied to building an aquarium. Just the setup is just a little bit different when you're putting the glass together. Here's everything we need. Obviously, you need your glass. As you can see, this is all cut already. But I'm still going to show you how to cut with this scrap piece. This is all cut. I got it cut at the hardware store because I'm lazy and they have a big machine that does it anyways. But you can go to your local hardware store and that's where you'll find your glass, and hopefully they should cut it for you. If not, I'll show you how to cut it. You're going to need a square, a speed square, silicone, aquarium safe silicone, caulking gun, blue tape, and then a glass cutting tool. This is an older one. You can buy a new one for maybe 15 bucks. And then you're going to need some mineral oil or some type of lubricant for when you're cutting. And of course, you're probably wondering why I have a jar of rocks. That is for when I'm building the aquarium, so I have something to lean the glass against. You can use a machinist block if you have one. Those work really well. Or you can even build a plywood jig to build your aquarium with. But I'm just going to use a thing of rocks because it's got a nice flat surface to it. You can pretty much find anything in your house to lean the thing up against, perhaps like an end to a bookcase or anything like that, or whatever those called, bookend, a bookend, yes. But let's start. I'll show you how to cut some glass. I recommend putting down a towel on your work surface, so when you drop your glass, instead of it just shattering on your work surface, the towel will cushion it and like keep it from breaking. So let's do that. Okay, so here's our glass, our scrap piece. You're gonna also need some cut-proof gloves, so you don't, when you break the glass, you don't cut your hands open, because that would not be good. So you're gonna want to use untempered glass, because if you use tempered glass, you can't cut it. It will just explode into a million pieces, and that's kind of annoying when you do that. So we're going to use our tool here, and it should have little blades on the tip here, and you just score the glass, and then we're simply going to bend it over the edge of a table or anything that you can like kind of crack it over. It's just that simple. Alright, so you're just going to line up wherever your measurements are. Obviously, I'm not making any measurements, but you're just going to take your tool and you're just going to, this is an older model, but the newer models are a lot easier to use. You're just going to press down really hard and score a line. And then just keep going. You're going to go for quite a few passes, making sure you have a nice scored line that will make sure that's where the glass breaks. And should be pretty easy. Make sure your tool is nice and oiled. That will keep it from making so much dust, and it'll make a much cleaner cut. Okay, so here's our nice scored piece here. And now we're just gonna bend this on the edge of the table. Just like this. You have your cut-proof gloves, and just press down nice and firm with both sides, and look how easy that breaks. Okay, so the edge that you just cut is going to be pretty sharp. You can use a little bit of fine grit sandpaper, or you can also just use a nail file or anything like that, and that should clean out pretty well. And it should prevent you from cutting yourself, but I don't think you should have to worry about that. Now that we know how to cut our own glass here, we're going to prep our pieces here before we set them up. There's lots of fingerprints and glass dust from cutting on these pieces of glass. That's going to cause our seal to not be as watertight or be as strong as it could be. So just take some rubbing alcohol or perhaps some soap and water and rinse it off. A nice scrub, clean it up. You can see, look at all that glass dust that's on there. That's going to prevent our seal from being good. And we're also going to switch to a hard surface instead of the towel because we don't want any bowing on our surface that we're working on, to make sure that we have nice square and even and level edges. I like to put down some paper, or you can use cardboard, so you don't accidentally glue your tank to your work surface. Alright, now that our glass is clean, the next step is, or at least what I like to do, is take some painter's tape over here and go along and make a border on the inside, so then we have a nice clean line from our seam. You can also just not do that and just do the seams by hand. But I like to have that nice clean line. It just looks a lot better. Okay, now let's wait a couple minutes, let the silicone set just a little bit so it's nice and tacky, and then we can squish our pieces together. Okay, so here we go. We set up the straight edge. You can see that, sorry, the square. See that, that's all lined up, and then we have this against it to keep it from falling over. And this inner bead here, so any of this extra that's squished over it, just take your finger and run it along through there and make it nice and smooth. Okay, so here we go. We've got the two pieces set up. As you can see, I added some weights in here, made sure everything was square. And now we're just gonna let these pieces cure, and then we'll put the front and back on. Make sure to remove the blue tape while the silicone is not fully cured. Okay, so now we're gonna do the front of this. I'm gonna put the back piece on first because it's a whole piece, so then I can put it on here. If you're doing an aquarium, all you have to do is just put 2 whole pieces, and then you're done. But if you're doing a terrarium, you gotta make one with the door opening, so cut a piece that's at the top like this, and then I cut a piece at the bottom, and then you have your door opening, and then the back will just be a solid piece. But I'm gonna work from the back to the front. I'll put the front piece on, and then later when the back piece is secured, I'll put the front piece on. Okay, so you can see that I got the front piece on, and I use these little tape helpers here to hold this in place, because everything should be square, so you shouldn't have to worry about squaring anything. It's always good to check, but make sure that every one of these joints is nice and tight, and you have a nice good bead running along. You can see some excess spilled over here. Oh, there's a hair. That, when we're done, we can just clean it up with a razor blade or a putty knife, and that should work out pretty well. So there's that. Remember to remove the blue tape before the silicone is completely cured, and other than that, you should be good. And this is why I like to use the blue tape, because look how clean that seam is. Looks good. There's not a lot of mess going on. Alright, the nice thing about working on this piece of brown paper is you can flip and turn around everything pretty easily. Next, we're going to put the top on. So if you were building an aquarium, you'd be done, because look, you have bottom and all 4 sides. So you just tip this on its side, and essentially, like, see, this would be the bottom of the tank, and this would be the top end. But I'm not making an aquarium, but now I've shown you the skills to make yourself an aquarium. I'm going to move on and make a terrarium. The process for making a terrarium and an aquarium is essentially the same, just the way the pieces of glass are assembled are different. But now that I've shown you the skills, you can apply that to your own work. But now I'm going to put the front on here. Okay, as you can see, the way that I built this door, it's cut into 3 pieces here. This piece is just the top piece, and it can keep a little bit of humidity in at the top. You can cut it into 2 pieces and just have one big door, and then the bottom to hold all the substrate. And then over here, I haven't glued these on yet, but See, they're not on yet, but I've got these teeny little hinges that I'm going to glue on here to make this door be able to move. Okay, so there we go. I got the front door on. The hinges are siliconed in. Everything works pretty well. This just comes out like this and then sits back up onto the edge right there. Ideally, what I should have done is, instead of putting a gap on the bottom and the top, is only putting a gap on the top and then not on the bottom, so that this panel sits right on top of this panel. So the door is not added, it's like bending down into this like that. So that's just added stress on this joint, but that's okay. Should work out. But here we are. This is our completed terrarium. Any excess silicone that's like hanging over the edge like this, you can just take a razor blade and cut it right off. Just like this. Here, I'll show you real quick. You just take that razor blade and, oh, the door came open. Just go like that. Look at that, nice and clean. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, because what's going to be going in this will be super cool, and hope you stick around and check it out when we make it. Stay tuned.